Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to talk about some of the struggles that I faced after coming to France for my masters and at HEC and how I overcame them. Before we get into it, let me take a couple of seconds to let you guys know about my email list. It's called The Growth Curve, and in this weekly newsletter, I'm sharing all the things that are helping me grow. The link is in the description below, and I definitely recommend you guys go and sign up for it. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get straight right into it. The biggest struggle that I faced at HEC by far was just being overwhelmed. In my first year, I was definitely very overwhelmed most of the time. There is so much to do, always. Stuff to learn for classes, doing group projects, socializing, networking, searching for an internship, attending career events and other on-campus events, and trying not to miss out on anything. And on top of all these things, if I have some extra time left, trying to learn French, trying to learn how to cook because the food at the RU is not the best always and I just wanted to learn how to cook. And maybe finding some time to work on my hobbies, like playing the guitar or making videos. It's very easy to feel like there's multiple bowling balls, multiple of them, and having to constantly juggle between them perfectly, and as time goes on, each of the balls just starts feeling heavier and heavier, and then eventually you drop them all and you're in a mess. On top of that, whenever I was doing one thing, I felt like I was ignoring three other things. If I was working on academics, I felt like I was ignoring my internship search. If I was in the process of finding internships, I felt like I was ignoring my group projects. It always felt like I could be doing something better with my time. I also never found time for myself because when I was by myself, I felt like I should be with others, and when I was with others, I felt like I should be by myself, and I was just never satisfied. I'm happy to say that I don't feel like this anymore. This was just the case in my first year, particularly my first couple of months of coming to HEC, because I wasn't used to it. And I honestly can't say how exactly I overcame it, but I can give you a few pieces of advice that I remember helped me sail through this. First and foremost, prioritize. It's really easy to get lost in the weeds when you don't know where you're going. If you can prioritize all your tasks at hand, it's much easier to figure out what needs to be done now and what can wait until later. It's also good to have a mental picture of what's important and what's urgent, because these two are not always the same thing. There's some things that are important but not urgent. There's some things that are urgent but not important. There's some things that are important and urgent. And then there's some things that are neither important nor urgent. This is something that I learned when I was working at MAC Cosmetics, and I had 3 managers, each of them giving me work to do every week, and I just felt like I couldn't make anyone happy, especially not myself. Second piece of advice I can give you is plan. Your calendar is your best friend. If you're feeling overwhelmed, it might be a good idea to plan your week out in advance. This includes the work you have to do, academic, professional, internship search, whatever it is, as well as social events. This can be a bit weird to do since you're not used to planning out your social events in advance, but it sometimes helps to just put it into the calendar and discuss with your friends beforehand when you're gonna meet them. Aside from my calendar, I use Notion to essentially plan out my entire life. And if you guys want, let me know in the comments below and I can make a video giving you a tour of my Notion setup. If you don't know what Notion is, I highly recommend you to go check it out. There's a lot of YouTube videos on it, and it's one of the best productivity tools out there. It completely changed my life. I'm not even kidding. Third piece of advice, accept. If you get good at this, it's life-changing. Ali Abdaal once said that you can choose to be happy with how you spend your time and not constantly feel like you could have done something better with that time. If you're constantly feeling like you should have done more with that time that you spend, or you could have done better with that time that you spend, remember that the time is already gone. You can either choose to be regretful about it, or you can choose to be happy with how you spent it. It's much harder, but way more rewarding to think that I'm happy with how I spent my time. Maybe tomorrow I could do more. Keep looking forward. Don't spend your time looking backward, because there's no point in that. The second struggle that I faced at HEC, or just in France in general, is too much competition. At a school like HEC Paris, everyone is super smart. It's such a selective school that everyone who's here was at the top of their game wherever they came from. But I think it's common at a lot of elite schools. As a result, it's really easy to start feeling like everyone else around you is doing way better than you. This perceived competition can show itself academically, professionally, and even socially. And unless you prepare your mindset, it's really easy for it to get you down without you even realizing it. Another result of this is imposter syndrome. That's where you feel like you don't deserve what you're doing. You don't deserve to be here, or the admissions people made a mistake, and everyone else is just way better than you. This gets particularly challenging when internship hunting season comes around. Every single time you hear about somebody else's internship search, you start doubting your own abilities, and that can really wear you down. After 2.5 years of being at HEC, this is what I've learned about this. Number 1, don't compare. I know it's way easier said than done, but this is really important. The thing at HEC, as well as most other master's programs, is that everyone comes from a different background. Some have work experience, some don't. Some speak 4 languages, some just speak 1. Some have crazy family connections, some don't. Some people came from really nice colleges for their bachelor's with a great alumni network, and others not so much. Some people have a bachelor's degree which is in line with what they're trying to do, and other people are trying to make a switch, and their bachelor's degrees aren't really helping them most directly in their internship search. And so it's not really fair of you to compare yourself with your classmates, because it's not a fair comparison at all. Even if you're attending the same program, you're in the same classes, remember that you have your own journey and they have theirs, and there's no point in comparing the two. The second thing that I've learned to do is to focus on your own path. Understand what your objectives are personally as well as professionally, and focus on meeting those objectives. I think the difficult part about this is actually understanding your objectives, and especially in the first year of the masters, this can be very confusing. Like, you have no idea what you want to do. It took me a year and a half to really understand what my objective is. It was only after I did the first internship of my gap year in Los Angeles that I became a lot more clear about what I wanted to do. It might take time for you, but you'll get there. But once you do get there, things become a lot clearer. Thirdly, rethink your relationship with social media. I found that when I'm in the state of comparison, browsing Instagram and seeing what everyone else is up to does me no good. It only makes it much worse. Consider going on a social media cleanse. Delete the Instagram app for a week to begin with and see what happens. The third struggle I faced was not knowing French. This can either be a huge struggle or just a minor inconvenience, depending on how you look at it. If you're super clear on what you're here for, your objectives don't involve France or French very much, then not knowing French is just a minor inconvenience. But if integrating into French culture, finding a job here, making friends here, integrating into the society, if that's part of your objective, then it can be a really huge struggle if you don't know any French at all. If you want to survive, if you want to get your work done administratively or at the bank or with the government, you need to know French, or you need to have a lot of supportive friends who know French and who can help you out. In my first year, when I was part of the media club on campus and I got the opportunity to visit many different companies' offices and learn from them, I realized then that not knowing French severely hampered my ability to take advantage of all these opportunities that I was getting. And it sucked. I remember being able to meet this classical musician once and not understand a word of what she was telling us, and also not be able to ask any questions. And this is something that, if the language was in English, I would have taken so much advantage of this opportunity, asked a lot of questions and really learned a lot. But just because it was in French, I felt like I was just excluded from that entire experience, and it really sucked. I'm much better at French now, even though I'm not fluent, but it took a lot of work to get to a point where I could converse in French or understand what the other person's saying, more or less at least. I have an entire video on how I learned French from scratch, and I highly recommend that you go check it out if this is one of your objectives. But of course, after you're done watching this video, not during. Another struggle that I had, especially in the first 1 or 2 months, was that I felt like I was spending too much money. This can be especially true for people who come from a country like India, where the currency is much weaker and things are way cheaper. I felt like I always had to choose between spending responsibly and really enjoying my experience here, and no matter what I did, I felt like I was overspending, but it was actually not the case. The 2 things you need to do if you're always feeling like this is, firstly, budget. Watch my expenses and budget video to understand what my monthly budget looks like, and I think it should be more or less the same for almost everyone, and you can alter it according to what your individual situation is like. Essentially, you want to make your budget bottom up. Look at each individual header: rent, groceries, food, eating out, entertainment, having fun, all those things, and then add all of those up to have this monthly budget that you have. The deal is that you get to convert this overall monthly budget into your own currency, like Indian rupees in my case, and then just digest it. Be like, okay, this is how much I'm spending. But after you're done with that, don't convert every little expense into rupees or whatever your currency is, because you're just gonna go mad if you do that. Just look at each expense as a fraction of your overall budget. Do you have enough space in your budget to buy that jacket that looks really nice? If you do, great. If you don't, then yeah, you probably shouldn't buy it. The second thing you want to do is track. There's no point in building a budget bottom up if you're going to be tracking your expenses top down. What I mean by this is that it's important not just to track what your overall expenditure for the month is, but how much you're spending on each individual thing. This way you can understand if your budget is realistic or you need to adjust it. Are you underspending on certain things or overspending on certain other things? It's really good to understand exactly how much you're spending on each different header to really understand that. This will give you a better idea of whether you could be eating out more or you should be eating out less, or whether you're spending too much money at the vending machine. The last struggle that I faced after coming here was I realized it's really tough to make deep connections when you're constantly moving around. While it was cool to be in a new country, in Europe, once the novelty wore off, I started to really miss my old friends in college. Coming straight from my undergrad, it took me some time to adjust. I missed my old friends, I missed my old environment back in Manipal, and it also did not help that I'd just broken up with my girlfriend of 2 years at the time. Eventually though, over the course of the first year, I did make some good friends. But then I moved to LA. Start from scratch all over again. And then I made a bunch of cool friends in LA and started dating someone there as well, and then I had to move back to Paris. Back to square one. And then those friends that I'd made in my first year, they moved out of Paris as well, just like me, and they didn't come back. So I had to make new friends again. And I did. And then the pandemic hit. And then I moved back to the HEC Paris campus, which is quite disconnected from the city. And then I made friends again. You might have a similar experience if you come here for your masters and then do internships or exchange semesters in different countries and different places. It's very different from your bachelor's, where you're just there for 3 or 4 years and you have like the same group of friends that you're hanging out with during that time, and then you become super close, and yeah, it's much harder to do that here. Right now at least, during the stage of life when I'm constantly moving around. I think the thing that really helps is to have a great relationship with yourself and to really work on it, because the only constant company that you have when you're moving around so much is yourself. It also really helps to learn how to make friends more easily. A great book on this is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and I highly recommend you to give it a read. Even if you don't have any trouble making friends, I think you're just gonna get better if you read this book. If you don't want to read, go watch a summary on YouTube. There's tons of them available. So very popular book. I think it's more than 100 years old, and a lot of the things that it teaches you hold true even today. You should also watch my video on YouTube about my mindset of making friends and how I use that mindset to make a whole bunch of friends in Los Angeles. It'll be there somewhere here. You should really go check it out. There you go guys, these were just a few of the struggles that I had after moving to HEC, coming to France, starting a master's program. Things may sometimes, or actually most of the times, look amazingly glamorous on Instagram, but reality is a lot more realistic. Super fun, but not always easy. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, it really helps me out, and otherwise, see you guys in the next one.